In today's video, we're talking about how they said it would never happen, but it looks like one of the biggest anti-cheats out there is coming to Steam hardware, which is amazing. After that, we're going to talk about how we're basically forcing Capcom to prioritize Steam hardware and PC in the future. And finally, now that you're probably wrapping up Resident Evil Requiem, I think now is the perfect time to go back to Resident Evil 7 on the Steam Deck. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is Deck Ready, my channel all about Steam hardware. I hope you are having a great week playing a ton of video games. I'm fully Resident Evil brained right now. I got 4 Remake up and running on the Steam Deck. Great. I'm playing Resident Evil 7, trying to unlock some stuff for the Madhouse mode, and I'm going to do a second playthrough of Resident Evil Requiem. It's a good time to be a Resident Evil fan. I would also greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel, set your notifications to all, and if you're not busy when you get those notifications, it really helps if you click them. But with the intro out of the way, let's get into the first news story and talk about anti-cheat on Steam hardware, because this is just something that people love bringing up, right? They're like, hey, it's cool that Steam is making the Steam Machine. It's cool that Valve is making the Steam Deck. It's cool that SteamOS is going to be available on any PC you want to put it on eventually. But you know, the anti-cheat makes it so that the PS5 will always be bigger. And it's like, yeah, I get it, right? Like PS5 is cool. If you're in the PS5 camp, you're rooting for that. Switch 2 is cool. You treat that like your lord and you're their knight going out with your squire trying to fight the battle for Nintendo. I get that stuff. Like, I'm kind of like that with Steam hardware. I'm not disparaging that, but it's clear that there's a lot of people playing games on PC and by proxy SteamOS, so it makes sense to put anti-cheat on SteamOS. I don't understand why people act like it's a good thing sometimes that there's no anti-cheat on SteamOS, because that's been one of the biggest barriers, and once that falls down, I feel like we're in just a really good spot with SteamOS. So one of the biggest ones that's been causing problems lately is EA's Javelin. In addition to including it in the new Battlefield with Battlefield 6, they've also kind of, I guess, been retroactively putting it into old games, which then breaks them on Linux and of course Steam hardware, which just sucks because Battlefield 1 for the longest time was one of the biggest games on SteamOS, and having to use the EA launcher and stuff is just a big problem. So they started not including the EA launcher in new games like once in a while, which is great, but the anti-cheat has been a big issue, and it looks like that issue is being solved because they have a job listing up right now that they're looking for a senior anti-cheat engineer, and in the listing they mentioned that they want to develop a native ARM driver for their Javelin anti-cheat support for loading different versions based on user hardware, and at the very bottom it mentions charting a path for Javelin to support Linux and Proton. So not only are they getting ready for Steam Deck and Steam Machine, they're also working on Javelin for ARM chips because they're probably looking at this new translation layer FEX that's getting these games up and running on the AYN Thor, the AYN Odin, and they're like, that's a new emerging platform and we want to be there. I don't know how long this will take. It's probably going to be a few months to a year or something like that. But the fact that they're even investigating it in the first place is such a huge step in the correct direction that it's nice to see. We're going to talk about how we're basically forcing these developers to do stuff like this by just showing up on PC in the next news story. But this is a great example of how, you know, demanding what you want on a platform that you're playing on generally results in what you want because you're offering up your money, right? Like if they get the anti-cheat working, a lot of these games are coming out like Battlefield 6 well optimized, and the only thing holding us back from playing it on Steam Deck is the fact that the anti-cheat doesn't work. So if they get the anti-cheat working, that's more people that can buy battle passes or buy skins or spend money in your in-game shop. And I care less about EA doing it than I do about the precedent that this sets, because if you get a huge publisher like EA to get on board with Steam hardware and SteamOS, it just gets the dominoes falling for everyone else, right? Like if EA does something, everyone's going to kind of point their sails in the same direction. So it's just good overall to see EA be the ones to start this, because if you asked me like a day ago when this wasn't even a news story, which one I thought would be last or would never do it, EA would be at the top of my list, because like for decades now when it comes to PC, they're taking Leon's Requiem hand cannon and just blowing their leg clean off. They're not shooting themselves in the foot. They're turning their leg into goo. So yeah, objectively good news story. If they can get this ready by the time the Steam Machine comes out, we are going to be sitting doing pretty at launch, and I'm very happy about this. But moving on to the second news story here, which is also extremely interesting, Capcom is learning how important we are to their business model in real time, and I think it's going to result in a lot more games that run really well at launch on the Steam Deck, like Resident Evil Requiem. So they put out their sales figures number, and it turns out that 50% of Capcom's money in the past year came from PC. The other 50% is mostly made up by PS5. I'm sure that Switch 2 will get a growing percentage because, you know, Capcom is porting their games to Switch 2. Xbox is thrown in the mix as well. But PC being 50% of Capcom sales is something that they've caught on to, and they've basically said that, yeah, I mean, the strategy that they used for Resident Evil Requiem, where they made sure it was finished on launch, they made sure not to miss the release date they initially announced, they made sure it was a quality product from top to bottom. They're like, yeah, that worked out really well for us, so we're going to continue to do that in the future. And that's really because people like us show up for good PC ports because they're so few and far between these days. So when you get a good PC port, that's awesome. The icing on the cake is the quality of the game, because as has been proven multiple times, people will show up for like an 8, 8.5, or like even a 7.5 if it runs well on PC. And I feel like when it comes to the Steam Deck, that's doubly true, right? Like if you get a game that's just good, but you have the extra marketing point that it runs well on Steam Deck, you're probably going to be pretty excited to buy it. And that's showing in the results that 50% of Capcom sales are on PC. When it comes to Monster Hunter Wilds, they doubled down and said, yeah, we're going to fix the performance even more. I think that's good. I think the reason they're doing that is because they're working on it for Switch 2. So like optimizing it for that means you have to optimize it for everything. And optimizing for Switch 2 means you're effectively getting a Steam Deck native version since they're so similar in spec. But yeah, they got Pragmata coming out soon. I tried both demos for that game. They run great on the Steam Deck. They've got Onimusha Way of the Sword coming out this year. That should run pretty well on the Steam Deck because it's an RE engine game. It's very similar in structure to Resident Evil Requiem. So yeah, even though newer games have to be run at lower settings, I mean, lower settings look good as proven by Resident Evil. I would love if they included FSR 4, just baked it in, because it's really easy to get it set up in all these games. Like Resident Evil Requiem, you just drag the DLL into the folder and then you have FSR 4. So if it's that easy, they should just do it for PC, because having that awesome special version of DLSS on the Switch 2 does insane legwork, because you're effectively running Resident Evil 9 at the same settings that you need on the Steam Deck for the Switch 2, but it looks better because they're using this older version of DLSS that's tailor-made for the Switch 2. And as decent as FSR 3 is, it's just not anywhere close to what DLSS can do. So FSR 4 though, that works better. That looks really good. It's on par with the Switch version, so I'd like to see that coming to Capcom's games more. So like clearly they take fan feedback. There's my fan feedback for you guys. And unlike the EA situation where I'm like more interested in other developers following their footsteps, I love Capcom, guys. Like they're probably my favorite publisher out there. They've got Resident Evil, they've got Dead Rising, Onimusha looks sweet, Pragmata looks sweet, they've got Mega Man. Like Capcom has some heaters when it comes to franchises. So if there's one big third-party publisher out there that I really want to support the Steam Machine and Steam Deck, it's definitely Capcom, and it looks like that's exactly what they're going to do. So good job all around. I'm glad Resident Evil is selling amazing. It did 5 million copies in one weekend, which in the past took weeks or even months to do. Like it's doing better than Resident Evil 4. And while I think 4 is still my favorite overall, and this game's pretty much tied with 7, it's a good game overall, and I love it. It's so good. I just like, Leon is my favorite character. Speaking of Capcom, I like to include a game when I can as the third news story. So today we're going to talk about Resident Evil 7, which is a game that's very near and dear to my heart because back when it came out, I was writing for Bloody Disgusting. That was what I did out of college. I made some YouTube videos for them. I wrote up a bunch of articles for them, and my first big game review for them was Resident Evil 7, and it was such a cool experience for me. They sent me a tape with the host of Sewer Gators, which is that Ghost Adventures style show where you play as like their tape in the game. The actual host that they mocapped was dressed in the costume on a set that looked like the Dolby estate, and he like said, get this tape to Jimmy Champagne. And I just thought that was so cool back in the day because I was like fresh out of college, and that was like a big moment for me. And thankfully the game lived up to my hype. It's my second favorite Resident Evil because I'm a huge horror movie fan, if you guys didn't know, and people generally think it pulls from the right franchises, but they miss the movies. Like when people say it pulls from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they're technically correct, but it's really Texas Chainsaw Massacre Stalker 2 it's pulling from. It pulls from Evil Dead, and I never see people pick up on that. I thought the Louisiana setting was excellent. It was cool getting to play as this new character in first person, and this game is one of the ones that I think Valve should market more as perfect on Steam Deck, because you download this game, you can essentially max it out and get a locked 45 FPS without even using FSR. The only setting I would change is the anti-aliasing. It wants to use TAA and FXAA. Switch it to the other one because it's a much cleaner image overall. But other than that, I mean, don't turn on the ray tracing, but you can max everything else out and it runs flawlessly on the Steam Deck. And if you play this game with headphones, totally different experience. It's absolutely one of the only scary games I've ever played. I have two minor gripes with it. The first one is the section where you play as Mia is just really rushed and not well thought out. The second one is that Chris looks absolutely bizarre. And finally, there just aren't a lot of things to unlock. Like, you can get the circular saw if you beat it in under 4 hours. You get Wesker's gun, the AW whatever, Samurai Edge. You get that for your second playthrough. And if you beat it under 4 hours, you also get some like Art of Defense scroll. But other than that, I think there's like running shoes or something, but there's not really crazy stuff to unlock like there is in Requiem or, you know, any of the other Resident Evils. But with those small blemishes in mind, it's still just such a complete package from top to bottom. And, you know, when you look at the sales figures of Resident Evil, this one's not low on the list, but it's not as high as I feel like it should be. And I always see in my comments people saying they bought it for the first time. And now, if you just beat Resident Evil Requiem, you know how to play it, right? Because if you play Grace in first person, it plays almost identical to Resident Evil 7. Like, it feels like the same game in a new map, and you honestly get more weapons and cool stuff going on in 7 than you do Requiem. So Requiem works as a primer for 7, and now that I'm like halfway through a Madhouse playthrough, I feel even more like you should definitely go back and try out 7 if you haven't played it in a long time or never played it at all. The DLC is also really good. Like, the Chris DLC is really fun. It's first person, so you don't got to look at his bizarre character model. There's also a bunch of like littler ones where you get to play blackjack and a saw trap. That really stood out to me. And then there's one where you play as Zoe's uncle, I want to say, and he has like a power fist and you just beat the shit out of the molded in the swamps. Love that DLC. I thought this was a really good game that, you know, it gets it's not underrated, but it's underplayed for sure. So again, if you've never played it, give it a shot. So yeah, that about brings me to the end of the video. My birthday was great. I went to Texas Roadhouse. I played Resident Evil 7, so it's like a perfect day for me. I just got to be real with you guys for a second before I close out the video. I genuinely, in my heart of hearts, hate scalpers. I've had money set aside for over a year now trying to get a Hamilton Field khaki watch, right? Like, that's what I'm saving it for. I wanted to wait for the perfect moment, like my birthday or like my anniversary or something, to go grab it. Then they announced they're doing one with Resident Evil that's Leon edition. Leon's my favorite character of all time. He's been my favorite character forever. I was like, this is perfect. So I log on to Hamilton's website right at 10 a.m. on February 27th, and it sells out in 2 seconds. I see them all pop up on eBay for like $9,000, and like the watch is already expensive, but it's like at MSRP. So like, I saved up the money. I'm happy to buy it. I can't buy it. So I've been calling watch stores all over the place. I had good luck at some where they were like, we'll try to get it. They're all basically failing. I know this is a long shot, but if any of you guys out there ended up getting 2 of those Leon watches and you're willing to part with one for MSRP, let me know on Twitter. You can DM me at Jimmy Champagne or deck_ready. But like, yeah, that kind of bummed me out, and I had to complain about it here on the channel. But overall, we're in good spirits. Game side of the fence, things are going well. Glad anti-cheat's being worked out. Glad Capcom is being forced to support PC. We could be having things go a lot worse, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for you in today's video. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.